Welcome to Tea Time. Please be advised that all of my commentary is for the sole purpose of entertainment. I will be sharing my thoughts and opinions, which are subjective and may not necessarily be true. With that said, I do make sure to do extensive research beforehand. All media used was found in the public domain and followed the fair use and fair dealings guidelines. I encourage everyone to do their own research. Now that that's out of the way, let's spill some tea. Well, this video will be a doozy because of all the revelations from their book. I'll start with the Sussexes distancing themselves from the book and saying that they had nothing to do with it. According to their spokesperson, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were not interviewed and did not contribute to Finding Freedom. This book is based on the author's own experience as members of the Royal Press Corps and their own independent reporting. However, they seem to have forgotten to edit this out of the author's note. We have spoken with close friends of Harry and Meghan, royal aides and palace staff past and present, the charities and organizations they have built long-lasting relationships with, and, when appropriate, the couple themselves. Well done. Already off to a great start, right? In addition, the authors have also built up how loyal and sympathetic Harry and Meghan's friends are to their plights. Their true friends would never betray their trust, thereby suggesting that any friend who has spoken to them during the creation of this book had indeed received their blessing. Oh, how they love their inconsistencies. I understand that I am coming into this very biased. But even looking at it objectively, it is clear as day that the details in the book could not have been written without Harry and Meghan's cooperation, whether directly or indirectly. There were just too many intimate details that not even friends would be privy to, such as text messages. Come on, you can't tell me that real friends would feel comfortable sharing text messages shared in confidence. Everyone knows how happy this couple is, so surely friends wouldn't be allowed to share such private messages to authors without any repercussions. So the only logical conclusion is that the book was written with Harry and Meghan's approval. In fact, the book even contains thoughts from Meghan herself. I will admit that I haven't read the book in its entirety because I feared I'd develop diabetes. Honestly, this book should come with a health warning. It can't be safe for royal watchers or anyone who has access to history books and Google to read this in one sitting. It will definitely raise brows and blood pressures as you read some of its most hilarious descriptions and claims. So yeah, I've been reading it in chunks. This will definitely be a series of videos as I wade my way through their many complaints. So for now, this video will address the over-the-top writing style of this hagiography. I think we can all agree that this really didn't read like a biography, certainly not one about royals. The beginning itself sounded like a cheesy Harlequin book. I'm going to read an excerpt from it, and please let me know what you think in the comments. It was a blink and you'll miss it moment as we watched Meghan smooth the belt of her crisp, white-lined label coat and brush a loose lock of hair out of her eyes. She looked over at a nervous Harry and put her hand on his back, rubbing the same spot several times. He was used to being in front of the press, but this time was different. He wasn't advocating for one of his charities or urging leaders to take climate change seriously. He was sharing something personal, the news of his engagement. Holding hands, they made their way through the throng of photographers waiting nearby. "You've got this," she whispered to the prince. The fact that she made this beeline for me both warmed my soul and made me want to turn around, walk out the door, and find a cliff to fling myself off of. Wait, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. The second paragraph was from an actual romance book. That's so embarrassing. But the beginning is very much from their book. This is why it is challenging to remember that this was intended to be a biography when you read such things. Also, when you go through the book, you really notice Meghan's fingerprints due to the many commas and the aversion to periods.
My now husband, my
But I digress. Aside from the cringy, intimate details of their courtship, the book goes to excruciating lengths to describe how wonderful dear old Meg is, how thoughtful she was even as a young girl, thinking only of others rather than herself. In fact, her willingness to help others and her drive to excel meant she was often deemed fake by classmates at school who felt it was impossible for anyone to be that perfect. And no, I am not paraphrasing. That is an actual line from her diary. I mean, their book. I won't even bother discussing the number of times the authors and the sources talk about Meghan's beauty. Let's just say it involved a lot of the most beautiful, beauty personified, etc., etc. But one description that really stood out to me was grace under fire. Because apparently, despite whatever pressure she was under, she didn't fall apart. Again, another inconsistency. Didn't she just submit documents at High Court stating how much her mental health has suffered due to the media's agenda against her? That is what drove them to make the right decision to leave the royal family, right? Also, are we forgetting this video? Didn't she just do the "it's not enough to survive" speech in a country that has one of the highest crime rates in the world? I think someone who is supposed to be a grace under fire would have focused on the job at hand rather than how mean the press is, just like all the female royals before her: the Queen, Princess Anne, Princess Diana, the Duchess of Cornwall, the Duchess of Cambridge, and Countess Sophie. Even Diana, with her infamous panorama interview, never overlapped the work with her personal issues. She didn't do a documentary that was supposed to raise awareness to an impoverished continent and talk about her issues. It's simply unprofessional and certainly doesn't connect with the strong and self confident woman that Scobie and Duran continuously describe. Also, before I move on, I would just like to pose this question: who even uses this expression, grace under fire, to describe a friend? It sounds so pretentious and obviously curtailed for a hagiography. Overall, I think this book is Meghan's diary, where she can finally air out all the petty grievances and perceived slights that the royal family and the world has committed against her. According to the authors, the aim of this book was to portray the real Harry and Meghan, a couple who have often been inaccurately portrayed and victims of those with personal agendas. Our mission has been motivated by the desire to present the truth of misreported stories that have become gospel simply because of the amount of times they have been repeated. Now, I am not refuting that the media scrutiny isn't tough. Of course it is. Being a public figure is never easy. But this is why those who marry into the royal family are encouraged to take their time. They need to consider what they'll be taking on, and yes, Rachel, what you'll be giving up. Unfortunately, this is something Meghan simply disregards or conveniently forgets. She signed up for this. No one forced her to marry Harry in less than 2 years, and no one forced her to have a child immediately after getting married. As much as the authors would like to draw parallels with Diana, Meghan was a grown adult when she met Harry. She was not a naive 19-year-old girl, so she needs to take accountability for her actions. But speaking of actual parallels,
Just a duchess, not age or age.
for those reasons, it brings me great sadness that it has come to this. The decision that I have made for my wife and I to step back is not one I made lightly. It was so many months of talks after so many years of challenges. You all know the reasons which have impelled me to renounce the throne. But I want you to understand that in making up my mind, I did not forget the country or the empire, which as Prince of Wales and lately as King, I have for 25 years tried to serve. But you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king, as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love. As you can probably tell, that was King Edward's abdication speech. However, the first paragraph was Prince Harry's exit speech. The main difference is that Harry is not that important. Reading that together, it really is crazy how history can repeat itself. If only he had Googled his family history, he could have learned the easy way from his great uncle Edward that the world simply doesn't revolve around you. There will always be someone who can replace you. Or in Harry's case, there was no need for a replacement anyway.
Do you have any regrets when you look back on your life?
Oh, about certain things, yes. I wish it could have been different. But I mean, I'm extremely happy and...
So that's all for this video, but I'll be doing several others on different topics in the book. Thanks to Honey to the Bee's summaries of Finding Freedom on Tumblr, I was able to outline the top complaints or issues with the British royal family that I want to address. The first topic I want to cover on my next video will be about the Duchess of Cambridge. I can't even quote one specific sentence or summarize this because of the amount of vitriol that was directed at Kate throughout the book. Towards the end, it wasn't even subtle or backhanded digs. It was just outright hate. But then again, I can expect nothing less from Meghan's mouthpiece, Scooby-Doo. Anyway, I will be spilling some tea on what the book says about Kate. The next bit will not only cover how Harry and Meghan wanted to control the narrative, but also their belief that they were the most popular royals. And then the third will be about the Queen's relationship with Meghan.
As you are my best friend.
Too late, Bernadette.
Bestie!
4. The Brothers' Rift. This will examine the decline of their relationship. And number 5, Megxit. I'm sure there will be more as I go through the book, but for now, these will be the top 5 that I want to address. So stay tuned for the next tea time session. Thanks again for listening and let me know what you think.